Hey, Joe, now that everything is done, I was wondering if you could bring us inside the negotiation a little bit. Obviously, it went up to, the deadline. It was a lot of talks last week or so. Just like, what were kind of the sticking points and what got it over the goal line?
Yeah, it started roughly, I think it was 3 weeks ago today when Athletes First, their group flew out here. We had a dinner initially, and they were actually in the building, the Thursday, Friday, for a couple of days. And we started our initial conversations then, and, then we kind of, went remote after that up until the combine. So we were in constant communication with them. Again, I use that, it was going to get worse before it got better. We started off, we were far apart, and then just over the days, weeks, hours, we eventually got closer, and, it pretty much came all the way down to the finish line. I think literally it was like 3:54, the deal got done, and there's a lot of moving parts to it, but, without getting into, all the details of what was sticking points and whatnot, I thought for the most part, at the end of the day, we'd get a deal done. Again, I said it all along that franchising wasn't best for the franchise and it wasn't best for Daniel. So at the end of the day, I was pleased to get it done, but it definitely went up to the wire.
You talked a lot about walkaway numbers and lines in the sand and that. Did you have to slide that at all as the clock was ticking yesterday, or did you hold firm, whatever that number was in your mind going throughout the whole process?
Yeah, all the way to the end. There was, again, you're not going to get everything you want in negotiation. Rarely is that ever going to happen. And I think that goes for both sides. So, there was give and take. People were standing firm on, what was most important to each side. And then at the end of the day, each side had to give a little bit. And, that's why it went down to the wire. And we're happy we were able to get it done.
Now that you have Daniel under wraps, and I'm going to presume Saquon, how do you go about making this offense better and making this team better around what is now your franchise quarterback?
Yeah, there's several avenues. Now we have some financial flexibility this year. Again, this morning we're going over the free agent market. And again, I know people want to talk about offense and the receivers a lot, but we're still building a team, and often, all three phases, we're going to look to upgrade, offensively, defensively, and our special teams units. So it's nice, again, to have, the draft capital that we have, the financial flexibility we have to really start building this thing. I don't think, I don't want to say this starts the build, because, we made some moves last year and, through the draft and some waiver wire claims that are still going to be here. But, this is finally where we have, flexibility, draft capital, a second draft class. And we really start building this thing knowing that, we have Daniel in place.
You inherited, somewhat of a mess last season. Is there a way that you would be able to explain to us how much better you feel about the organization right now and its flexibility in some respects?
Yeah, I'll give you a good example. We were just talking about a player. I won't name the position or anything. And it's like, yeah, we're guessing his market might be 2.5. And I'm like, we can afford that. Like it's only 2.5. Like we can actually afford it. We're not shopping for minimum players anymore. So even players like that can be really good depth players will make us that much better. So yeah, just having the flexibility now to, be creative, go get players, it's maybe a little bit higher value, but, also being able to sign, whether it's tier 3 players, 2, 1, however you do it, just, we can map it out, and there's players that we can go procure now that maybe we weren't in the past. So this offseason, a little bit, I still believe in, building through the draft, and, we can sign guys in free agency to help the roster. But I still think with, Daniel and, Dexter coming down the road and some of the other players, like you're still going to need to build through the draft, because I think there's going to be some players that are making good money on our roster. So it's still going to be important.